But in my view, generally, COVID has expanded the pre-COVID trends. It's accelerated them. So we see Chinese hard and soft power increasing, accelerating. Of course, it's not new. Poor leadership in the United States has played into this, but it is primarily driven by the importance of an integrated and rising Asia as the locus of global economic dynamism. And of course, the relative decline in importance of Europe and North America globally. However, in my view, the most important fundamental shift is from globalization to regionalization. Complex global value chains are contracting as manufacturing is reshoring and production no longer chases the least cost location, but it is searching for the best location closer to the market. So manufacturing is moving closer to the consumer. It's happening in Asia, in North America, Europe, and even in Africa is turning inwards. In this process, digitization and the fourth industrial revolution sees a more decentralized production model that offers Africa many advantages. So globalization is changing, but it is not the end of global cooperation. But in a more complex, hot, flat, multipolar world, it almost appears as if efforts at global responses are more difficult than before. The impact is to undercut the role of organizations such as the United Nations and some of its agencies, and that they become and increasingly have a digital technical role. Exactly how the coronavirus impact will play out in Africa is still very uncertain. Our median age is below 20, we are more rural, less connected, and our informal economies makes it very difficult to look at that future. Europe has a median age of close to 45 years. But in general, I think that the political impact will be that authoritarian countries will become more authoritarian and democracies will become more democratic as people hold their leadership to account. The problem is that the economic impacts of COVID-19 may be with us for a long time. We are all betting, and the IMF forecasts a V-shaped recovery with a vaccine discovered and rolled out globally in 2021. But what happens if that does not occur? What happens if it's a longer U-shaped recovery, or that there's a rebound of infection, or even a great global depression? Clearly, debt has become a huge issue in Africa, and a spectacular default somewhere is now a distinct possibility. Food security is again important to feed countries during lockdown and isolation, and hopefully COVID will see a rediscovery of the importance of agriculture in Africa. COVID-19 could also have positive effects. It may force us to reconsider our lifestyles and make us more aware of the inequities across society and the way in which future challenges are quite different from the past. Certainly, it has given home and distance working a huge boost, and it has reminded us of the power of nature and our vulnerability to global challenges. It may eventually galvanize the efforts to reduce carbon emissions and therefore combating climate change. Eventually, views on the future differ fundamentally depending on where you live. If you are in Europe, you tend to be concerned about the future. If you are in Asia and in Africa, the future offers huge potential and much hope. Africa has a growing consumer market, and it is the last big opportunity globally with all kinds of untapped potential. But Africa, particularly sub-Saharan Africa, is also the locus of extreme poverty, and in our forecasts, the poverty levels in Africa at about 500 million people will remain unchanged, and poor countries will still require aid and help, particularly from Europe, which is bound to Africa by history and geography. It's important to underline that the world still today is more peaceful and prosperous than ever before, and that challenges like COVID are being dealt with in a way in which would have been unimaginable a decade or two ago. Africa is only about 3% of the global economy, and that could only increase to about 4% by 2040. An issue that I explored in a recent book, Africa First, that I have published. But in spite of its large and growing population, which is currently 17% and will be 23% of the world's population by 2040, the current forecasts are that Africa will generally remain quite marginal in global affairs. And we are concerned that we become once again a battlefield in the struggle between a relative declining West and a rising Asia. What we need is assistance from both. Thank you very much.